Hello all you infidels, kuffar Muslims out there. Nemesis is back for part 2 of Islamic Apologetics, i.e. Gazbot 1990. Right, I was saying that I was coming on to page 32, which I have done. Right, he's actually having an argument with American Loyalty Pride on my channel. That's right. And basically, American Loyalty Pride is basically saying that I myself say no to Islamofascism. Probsford and his reason to be have all owned his ass. And his response to him is, actually I owned his reason to be quite concisely, but you haven't bothered to look at the comments most likely. Probsford hasn't even had a real discussion or argument with me, so that goes straight out the window. Nemesis hasn't owned me at all. A quick clue for you here, kid, just because someone says something like weak argument doesn't mean that it actually is. They are all just as you are doing, diverting the attention away from the very real and very valid points I have raised by attempting to discredit me, at which they are failing miserably, judging by the amount of messages in my inbox telling me that I am correct. Say no to Islamofascism has not owned me either, unfortunately, and none of what gets said on YouTube affects me in the slightest. Anyways, lol. Right, obviously being owned is a big thing to him, so I am going to own him. Big time. And we'll just go on, basically. I think it's quite ironic that he goes on about discrediting people. Well, we'll see what you do about that then, Gazbot. Right, anyway, page 31 is the next port of call. Right. And my reply to his racism card: you continue to use the racist card because you have no other means of defamation. Perhaps you should be careful citing the UN as a means to back up your point on the definition of racism. Religious racism is an oxymoron used by oxymoronic people. So you also side with those Muslim nations who tabled the notion of religious defamation in Geneva. That tells me a lot more about you. You wish to contort and ultimately restrict legitimate criticism of religion. Religion should not be above criticism. If people get offended by others quoting their holy text, then I strongly suggest that they leave their religion if they find it so offensive. I mean, why follow something that is so offensive? Why defend something so offensive? Unless Muslims themselves start speaking against their religion and reject parts of it and cause the reformation it so desperately needs, then criticism will continue. It's tough shit if people can't take criticism. They need to grow up and start living in the real world and accept criticism as part of normal everyday life. Silly little notions at the UN won't compromise my right to freedom of speech and freedom to criticise religion. They would have to abrogate Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights to do this anyway. Legally, it can't be policed properly. Anyway, so there's little hope for the censorship you and those Islamic dictatorships wish for. A battle of ideologies will ensue and carry on in the press, in forums like YouTube, on television, etc., etc., for some time to come, whether you like it or not. Right, just to go on about Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, I took the liberty to post it here as well. Article 19. Everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. Bit of a stumbling block that this one, isn't it? Oh well, never mind. Right, so Gazbot, the very term insult is subjective and is defined by people's perception. Let me give you an example. Al-Madiyah 5:33. The punishment of those who wage war against Allah and His Messenger and strive with might and main for mischief through the land is execution or crucifixion, or the cutting of hands and feet from opposite sides, or exile from the land. That is their disgrace in this world, and heavy punishment is theirs in the hereafter. My view is that this verse is intolerant and hateful towards those who criticise Islam. This verse ordains its followers to mutilate, expel, or kill those who object to the Islamic faith and its laws. Yes, Islam itself restricts free thinking, freedom of expression and freedom of speech. So I table the notion that Islam is hateful, conditional, intolerant and murderous. Right. There's my little rant at him. Again, he's going on about the racist aspects here. He's saying, I have plenty of other means of defamation. You simply focus on the racist aspect because you seemingly think you haven't been racist. Racism and religious intolerance are against international laws. Persecuting people because of their religious beliefs is against the law. Your freedom of speech is not truly free because you still cling to your little laws and rules in the US, which are flawed. Nobody bows down to the USA. However, the US president bows down to King of Saudi Arabia. You and your freedom of speech can hide that you hide behind will get you sued one of these days. Well, yeah, you can be sued, of course you can, if you speak something that's untruthful. I'm not. So, if somebody wants to sue me for saying Islam is intolerant, murderous and hateful, bring it on. Anyway, Al-Madiyah 533, his response to that, the punishment of those who wage war against Allah and his messenger and strive with might and main for mischief through the land is execution or crucifixion or the cutting off of hands and feet from opposite sides or exile from the lands. That is their disgrace in this world and the heavy punishment is theirs in the hereafter. He's saying that your interpretation of the above is flawed. It clearly states Allah, God, and his messenger, not Islam or the Islamic faith. Thus, it is not those who criticise the religion, but those who wage war and criticise God himself, who deserve such punishment as ordained by the holy text of the Quran. Your argument is completely flawed and down to misinterpretation, uneducated and intolerant misunderstanding, and your own personal hate. Right, I do hate aspects of Islam, there's no question about that. I don't hate every part of Islam. There are some parts of Islam that I like. But Islam is a total ideology. It's a total and complete way of life for its followers to adhere to. Right? My questions and my arguments to that is you can't just take out the nasty bits. If those nasty bits are there and they abrogate previous verses, for God's sake, then they need criticism. They need to reform, and I don't give a flying fuck if that insults or hurts somebody's feelings at all whatsoever. Right. Yes, he's wrong here. My interpretation of the above is flawed. Clearly states that Allah and his messenger, not Islam or the Islamic faith. Well, actually, it does actually say that those who wage war against Allah and his messenger, correct, but also those who strive with might and main for mischief through the land. That is a very important part to remember, people. So, I shall dabble into that with a little bit more detail a little bit later. Right, he also says, and it's exactly how you say, it's up for the Muslims in the world to reform their own religion. It's not up to interfering outsiders who don't even really understand the religion to force that reformation upon them. Discussing politely without insulting is the way forward. You are a naive and foolish man. You are also filled with hatred. You are determined to force the rights of those in the Middle East away while defending fiercely your own rights. You are hypocritical in that sense. You are a very nasty person, even things in your profile description are flawed. This is him trying to divert attention away from this subject. Al-Madiyah 533. I won't let him get away with that. I'll answer any question that anyone fires at me. But if someone wants to make claims of superior claims have never been owned and I'm always right and you're racist, well, bollocks. We'll discuss this because I'm telling you Islam is hateful, intolerant and murderous, and you're saying it's lovely and fluffy and it's the best thing ever, basically, which is such a load of apologetic bollocks, I can't believe. But anyway, this is part 2. Please join me for part 3.